There's going to be plenty of judgment passages in the days to come, so I'm not going to focus on those today. I want to focus on some of the other bits. The first part in Isaiah chapter 8 about fearing God, um, it says, Don't, he is the one you are to regard as holy, he is the one you are to fear, he is the one you are to dread. And what that's addressing is the fact that people of Israel seem to be afraid of everything else, but not afraid of God. And isn't that true of us? So much of the time, I find that I'm afraid of a whole load of things, but to think about being afraid of God isn't something that always jumps out at me. One of the reasons why we are so fearful of everything else is because we don't realize how scary, as it were, God is. You know, it's like we're walking down a dark alley at night with a poodle, and that's how we think of God. God is great. And so to walk down a dark alley with him late at night is equivalent to walking down not with a poodle, but with a lion. And if I'm walking down a dark alley with a lion late at night and he's on my side, I'm not going to be afraid of anybody who's coming up against me. I'm just going to be like, lion, rip their face off. We walk around with a God who is like a lion. And the reason why our problems seem so big is because he is too small. Our God is too small. We don't understand him for his greatness and his power. Fear him, and then suddenly everything else isn't quite as scary. And to fear him is the only logical thing to do. It's like we're afraid if someone say, "Hey, I'm going to throw you at the sun," well, the sun is a massive ball of burning fire, and before you even get near to it, you would melt. So that would be a scary thing. And what we're talking about is we walk with the living God, like he lives inside of me. He holds the sun is not a big deal for God. The sun is like, oh yeah, I made the sun with a word. I hold it in the palm of my hand, and he, that God who does all of that, lives in me, and he lives in you. And when we understand him for how big he is, when we fear him as we rightly should, suddenly all of these other fears fade away because we realize who is on our side. And then this next little bit I love. We often read it at Christmas. Unto us a child is born. And the whole thing about how he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And um, just this incredible picture of the fact that a God who is to be feared above everything, who holds the universe in the palm of his hand, becomes a little baby and a child is born. And through, you don't associate power and gentleness together, do you? You usually think someone's gentle but they're not very strong, or someone's massive and powerful but they're not very gentle. And with God we meet both. And there is born inside that little stable in Bethlehem something that's bigger than the whole world. And that is how he brings about his salvation. Isn't God just amazing?